Welcome to the Hollywood Outsider, an award-winning weekly entertainment podcast focusing on film and television. Our last episode revolved around Oscar nominees, and this time we're going to discuss one of the most talked about movies of the year, probably next year's Best Picture, Zack Snyder's Justice League. Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, Flash, Aquaman, and the return of Cyborg. The age of heroes has arrived. Remember, you can always find more information at thehollywoodoutsider.com, join our Facebook group, or we're on Twitter at BuyPopcorn. My name is Aaron Peterson. I'll be your host. Joining me today, my fellow host, John Davenport.
I'm Batman.
Amanda Sink.
No, I'm Batman.
No.
No one's
Batman, anymore. Or Ben Affleck.
Hello.
Well, this is not 2017's Justice League.
That's my favorite.
What's your favorite? Justice League?
Justice League? I can't tell you. So you put this on social media and I can't tell you how hard I laughed and for how long. I don't know if it was just like the sleep deprivation from South by Southwest week or what, but it was so funny to me.
I've been saying that since it came out. I feel pretty proud of that. Now people are like, "Oh, that's been around for a while." I'm like, I've been saying it since it came out, so you can suck it.
We'll just give you credit for starting it.
Yeah, exactly. Even though I don't know if you're allowed to say Joss anymore. Is that like a banned word? I don't know what the rules are, but I don't care. This is a different movie.
Well, if Antifa suddenly shows up and drags you out of your room right now, then you'll know you can't.
Stop it. At 4 hours, 3 F-bombs, an R rating with blood and decapitated heads, which was freaking awesome, by the way. I love that moment. What did you guys think of Zack Snyder's Justice League? Like, we're going to ask that question right off the bat, and then we're going to go into the plot this time. The changes that were made, the big changes. What would have happened or what Snyder wanted to happen, including a crazy idea that it was just...
I like.
Which Amanda, of course, likes, because the rest of the world knows it's not sane. So what did you guys think overall of this version of Justice League? John, you've been the most excited. Why don't you go first?
Overall, this whole movie felt like something much more operatic than the original or the Joss version of it. So this felt like something massive, which it was, of course, 4 hours, so it's going to be massive. And it felt something like I was really surprised throughout the entirety about how not bored I was, because I didn't feel like I was watching the same thing over again. I felt like I was watching something brand new and interesting and engaging. And I really love the depth we got to go into with all the characters and not just Batman and Wonder Woman. It was just, as far as a comic book fan's concerned, I feel like that I got the best bang for my buck out of this.
Amanda, how about you?
You know, I would say 4 hours was just too long for me. If we would have had time, I think I would have been better off and enjoyed it more.
Hang on.
If I could have chunked it.
I got to stop this real quick. I'm not trying to cut you off, but I am going to cut you off.
But you are.
You watch 10 episodes of TV at a time, and I see this all over the internet. It's too long. By the same people that I know for a fact binge watch TV shows all the time. I can't understand the argument.
It's the same week as South by Southwest, Aaron. I was already I'm running at capacity. We've got enough. They should have known better, first of all. Next time somebody wants to put out a 4-hour movie, can you not do it during the bingiest movie season for film critics? Jeez. But anyway, it felt like it was long, I think, because of that for me. I'm not saying it as a slight against it. I'm just saying I think I would have enjoyed it more had I been able to chunk it up a little bit better, just because of what my week looked like. So it was nothing against the film itself. But I liked this version much more. I liked even coming down to the colorization of it. I think it just worked so much better. It felt so much more authentic to the characters. There was so much more heart and story to it. And a lot of the story issues that I had with Justice League, which I still did like, or Justice League, that I still did like, but now I'm now after seeing Zack Snyder's version, it's kind of do I like that one though?
I know,
because I liked this one so much more.
It's made me like Justice League a little less, truthfully.
Seriously.
I was astonished how much I thought was Joss Whedon was actually Zack Snyder.
Yeah.
in that movie. Like my favorite shots and bits in the actual 2017 release of Justice League, which we're just going to call it Justice League. It's just easier to figure out which movie we're talking about when they're two of the same movie. It's so much. There wasn't as much in that movie that was shot by Zack Snyder, but all of the best stuff was Zack Snyder, and I did not realize that. So while I'm watching this, and I'm like, oh, that's the same scene expanded, or has a different musical cue, or has a different context, and I'm just like, wow, it's amazing to me how a different director makes all the difference, because they change the coloring, they change the music, they change whatever, and suit it to their style, and it's completely different. Now, to be fair, I mean, Joss Whedon had to kind of Frankenstein that movie together because that's what Warner Brothers wanted, and that's I don't know who to blame for that, whether it be Warner Brothers, a little bit of both, or Joss Whedon. Yeah, probably a little bit of both. I think they wanted to marvel it up. That's why they brought in the guy that made Avengers. It's like, we need to marvel this movie up, because Batman vs Superman is too dark. We needed to throw in some weird stuff where Flash lands on Wonder Woman, and we need to throw in some.
Well, they were trying to be competitive.
Justice. Yeah, sure. I mean, they were just trying to capture the same audience, and I more appreciate that these kinds of DC films look completely different than Marvel films. I'm a big fan of that, but I'm not. There's not a huge crowd, I guess, for that. But what I found walking out of it is how much I loved it. Like, I expected to like it because I like the other movies, but I absolutely loved this. When this was done, I immediately wanted to watch it again. I mean, I really just thought it was fantastic, and it rivals some of the Avengers movies. I mean, in terms of like big superheroes coming together, this was right up there for me.
I mean, absolutely, as far as that's concerned. Like, as far as this rivaling anything the Avengers does, this is right up there with anything, because with the difference of, like, Avengers still feels very safe and very controlled and confined, whereas this, it didn't feel that safe anymore. It felt more, it felt grander. It felt more impactful. It felt scarier in a lot of ways. And that's something that Marvel doesn't really sink into very much.
And to your point about you recognizing those Snyder scenes, but not realizing that they were shot by Snyder. Mm-hmm. The moments that were still in this movie, there were so many times where I was like, man, I didn't think I remembered anything about this movie, but I guess I do remember it. Because for me, all of the memorable scenes for Justice League, and I have a terrible memory, so the only things that I really remembered were those moments that came from Zack Snyder. The rest of Justice League is kind of forgettable in my mind. It not is. Intentionally, no, it just was. And so when it comes to this movie, I was like, man, there feels like there's so many things that I remember. Like, is this really, how much of it did they use of, like, he couldn't have used anything from Joss Whedon, so that's weird. So he must have shot a lot more in Justice League than I thought. But no, it's just because I recognize those scenes because they were more memorable.
And then he took out some weird ones, like the Wonder Woman moment where she's talking to the little girl. I'm like, that's Wonder Woman. Why on God's green earth is that not there?
Right.
Why isn't that there? And then you've got the battle in Themyscira. I can never say that word right.
Themyscira.
Thank you. You have that battle, and it's like half the length, right? It's half the length in Justice League than it is here. But it's completely different. Even it just feels like a completely different battle, even though it's so similar in terms of what you see. And that moment where we have no fear, that's like a great frickin' moment. And I don't understand why that wouldn't be in the one that was released. So I just feel like, God, you guys sabotaged your own movie. Like, I get you'd never release a 4-hour movie, but it should have been at least 3 hours. And a lot of this stuff should have been incorporated.
Yeah, if you would have just taken a lot of the slow motion out of this movie, it would have been 3 hours.
Yeah, that alone would cut down the runtime here. But I think to your point about the character you brought up, Wonder Woman, she was such a different character in Zack Snyder's version. At least to me, as looking at her, I felt like she was more important, more impactful, more meaningful. She had more to do. Her intentions were better. and maybe not intentions, but her reasoning for things was done. A lot of it was done better. That whole argument between her and Batman, I love that that's gone, because then it's just a team conversation, which is what it should be.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But that Wonder Woman moment where she's talking to the girls, the little girl and all the kids, I was like, wait a second, this is really, really powerful, especially because Wonder Woman is a superhero that's literally and figuratively talking to little girls across the world. So why wouldn't you have that moment in there? Because that's what her character does in so many different ways. Mm-hmm. And here is a really beautiful way to show just how strong and bold and powerful she can be, but also so sensitive and soft and comforting. It was the perfect dynamic for her character.
All right, well, we're going to get into every specific character, or the big ones. We're not going to talk about every character because it's 4 hours long, for crying out loud. But here's the plot, which is a similar plot, but it's also completely different in many ways. Zack Snyder's definitive director's cut of Justice League, determined to ensure Superman's ultimate sacrifice was not in vain, Bruce Wayne aligns forces with Diana Prince with plans to recruit a team of metahumans to protect the world from an approaching threat of catastrophic proportions. This time, Darkseid arrives, Steppenwolf has a whole new look, Cyborg has an actual backstory, and we've got over 3 hours, close to 3.5 hours of new to us material, including a newly filmed scene, that nightmare scene, which we'll talk about in detail. But I do want to kind of throw in that for people that don't know, the anti-life equation, which is talked about a lot and would have been a big focal point of going forward, was a transcendental mathematical formula originally said to allow those who knew it to dominate the will of any sentient race. So basically it can control any race, right? John, I mean, you're familiar with this concept.
Yeah, it takes away anyone's free will, love, and all that. It makes them basically Darkseid slaves.
Yeah, they didn't really explain that very well, I don't think, in the movie, but I think that wouldn't have been explained that well in this movie. It would have been something that came up later, because the next movies would have been dealt.
Yeah, especially because of that end scene. You don't want too much explanation ahead of, because that final scene is supposed to relate towards possible future movies if you were to ever get them. And so you wouldn't explain that. You'd just be like, what is happening here? And then other movies would be like, that was what was happening here. So I think it made sense that it wasn't fully fleshed out there.
Well, one thing that's happening here, and of course, some of the Snyder non-likers, I won't use the word hater, but you know you are. They're looking for something to pick apart. And the first thing I saw people jumping on was the aspect ratio. And hey, if you don't like it, you don't like it. If you do like it, you do like it. I just want to explain it. So Snyder opted to shoot the film on 35 millimeter with a 1.331 aspect ratio, which is close to what is known, or was known as the Academy ratio of 1.37 to 1. In regards to the presentation, and now this is how, if you're looking at it, just to explain it in layman's terms, you know how when you watch widescreen, you have black boxes on the top and bottom. Well, in IMAX, it's being shot for an IMAX presentation, so you have the presentation on your TV is going to have the black boxes on the sides because it's more close to a square. It's like a 4:3. So in regards to this presentation, which would have been cut to widescreen, he elected to preserve his vision, saying, my intent was to have the movie, the entire film, play in a gigantic 4:3 aspect ratio on a giant IMAX screen. Superheroes tend to be, as figures, they tend to be less horizontal. Maybe Superman when he's flying, but when he's standing, he's more of a vertical. Everything is composed and shot that way, and a lot of the restoration is sort of trying to put that back. To put these big squares back. It's a completely different aesthetic. It's just got a different quality and one that is unusual. No one's doing that. So thoughts on this presentation for HBO Max before we move into the actual movie more?
I thought I was going to be distracted by it. I thought, because I've been watching a lot of stuff from back in the 90s and lately, as far as binge watching some stuff, and some of it's still in that same aspect ratio, and I was like, that's going to annoy me because it annoys me watching this stuff. But after a while, I completely forgot it was there, and I didn't even pay attention to it. I felt like there was something about those shots that were in this because of that aspect ratio that was just more inviting and more engulfing as far as being able to take my attention into it.
It really annoyed me in the beginning. Like when it first happened, I was like, oh God. I had an actual noise that I made in a sigh of despair. But then, like John said, it kind of just went away. I got used to it. It's just because we've gotten so accustomed to widescreen, we're not used to seeing it in this kind of aspect ratio. So I think for me at least, it was a little jaunting at first, and then I just got over it.
Was it a little josting? No? Too far? Much reach?
No, yeah.
Well, I thought I was going to hate it. I'll be honest. I'm just like, when I saw the trailer and it was presented in that form, I'm like, oh, I don't know if I want to do that for 4 hours. And then I remembered, when widescreen came to TVs, it was an adjustment, just like anything. People complained like crazy when it first started coming to DVDs. They're like, what is this widescreen? There's boxes on the top and front. I can't have that. I need my pan and scan. And then you realize, well, I'm really missing most of my movie, so that sucks. I got used to it. After about 3-4 minutes, I didn't even think about it again till the very end. And I'm like, oh, it's still in that ratio. Right. I totally didn't realize it. It looks great. I actually appreciated it when it was over. But yeah, at the beginning, it's a little getting used to. But, on a 65-inch TV, it worked great. Now some people are like, well, my iPad. Well, if you watch it on your iPad, I don't feel sorry for you. Nobody should be watching movies on an iPad. I just don't.
I love his reasoning for it, though. Like, that makes it more... Like, I understand it. I feel like I get it of where he was coming from. And this whole thing is supposed to be his vision.
Yeah.
It's not for us. It's for him. And it's for Autumn. So, like, you just accept what is given to you.
Oh, that was really sad at the end. Very sweet.
And the song that was for her favorite song. It's actually the same performer who performed at her funeral, too.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
If you don't know what we're talking about, his daughter passed away. That's the whole reason why he got pulled from Justice League. But look that up. We don't want to kind of go into that because that's somebody's personal matter. And,
well, he didn't get pulled.
He pulled himself is what I'm saying. Like, he didn't feel like he could continue with this. So that's why it worked out the way it did. And plus, they were giving him so much. He didn't want to fight with the studio at that time. He had more important things to worry about. So here we go. In terms of the movie itself, what were the big surprises for you as you watch Zack Snyder's Justice League? Like, when you're watching it, Amanda, what was your biggest surprise? Because you just watched Justice League because we were going to do Batman versus Superman, and for some reason you thought that's the movie that we were watching, even though we clearly had conversations about it. So, what did you? What were you surprised by?
There was a lot that I was surprised by. I guess I went into this with the understanding and anticipation of a new visual aesthetic, but not necessarily like a content change. And simply by giving better, and I say better, backstory to some of the characters, I felt like the story was more fleshed out. I like the term that John used too. It was operational. It made sense. Like, everything that happened made sense, and the choices that happened, but it also gave so much insight into the superheroes that you otherwise probably wouldn't have, because so much of Justice League, in my opinion, relied on your own understanding of the comics to be able to interpret why things were happening. And even then, some of the things were like, well, that's dumb. But then here, he's fleshing out these characters, which completely changes the mood of the story. It's not even the mood of the story. What's the word I'm looking for? It just changes
the tone.
It makes it. Yeah, it changes the tone, because this was so much more filled with heart. And I don't know, I really liked it, but I wasn't expecting that at all. I just thought it was going to be like, we've got better looking superhero or supervillain, and we've got some better colorization here, and that was gonna be about it. Like, fleshing some scenes out. I didn't realize how much of a different vision he had than what we got presented in 2017.
For me, the things that kind of surprised me was really my reaction to a lot of what I was seeing. First of all, like, I knew that Martian Manhunter was going to be in this movie, but when I finally saw him, I kind of like cheered, because I was excited to see more than just Batman, Superman, and their whole roster. And I was happy to see that they're hinting at even more of this world that we're going to get I guess we're not going to get to see now.
No, we're not getting it, buddy. Sorry.
Yeah. But the other thing that surprised me was just like, again, I thought I was going to be bored. I was highly entertained by just how much I got into the story and how like it was fun playing that game of, well, this is different, that's not different, this is different, that's not different, this is very different, this is also very different, this is the same thing but the different context, you know. And it was a lot of fun just understanding that, or even explaining that to my viewing partner, was like, you know, what was different or what was in a different context. I really was happy with, instead of them fighting over resurrecting Superman, it was more of like a team decision. I was really happy with how they changed Flash from being kind of a cowardly character to just being still new. At this whole superhero thing, they kind of lead to him being new but not cowardly. You know, he's still very much wanting to be a hero, and he's just kind of a little bit of a goofball, but not much. Cyborg was something that I didn't see coming as far as the depth they were going to go with his character. And I really liked the fact that they were carrying us through that story with him.
Yeah, what I was most surprised about was part of me is, even though I was excited about it, part of me is like, it's really just going to be the same movie, just with the slow motion. It'll be 4 hours. You know, I can get behind that. That feels like a Snyder move, but it wasn't at all. Like by the end, I'm like, this is a whole new movie. It's a whole new movie. And, you know, Darkseid is now really the main architect. I mean, that's really different. Steppenwolf is more like which we're going to talk about in a second. Yeah, he's more like a lackey. And it's just, we get so much heart. Cyborg, who I didn't like in the first movie. I just didn't care about that character. I'm just like, I don't even care about this guy. Like, what is his story? Now I know. I didn't know. And that's, you know, when his dad sacrifices himself, broke my heart. It was really...
Oh my God, the feels.
It was really sweet. The moment where they decide to resurrect Superman was powerful this time. It wasn't just like an afterthought. The mother boxes made sense. The Flash has that really cool moment where he meets Iris and there's a hot dog in her face, and that's just weird, but I liked it anyway. And it was also kind of sweet and hilarious and also wrong in about 4 different ways. It's just, there's so much more in this movie that really... It felt like a whole new experience. I really expected to just be reminded of Justice League the whole time. And the whole time I'm just like, if this was released right now, I would still be raving about it. Like today, I would still be raving about it.
Absolutely. This movie deserves all the credit it's getting right now. And I think it's going to be a conversation piece in how, and in making a film with hindsight being 2020.
Absolutely.
Well, on top of that, too, I think when you talk about reflecting on what was done here, simply the conversation around how much a director has visual, story, like every type of influence. Like all of the other jobs are very important, but the director can make such a different impact to a movie. And I don't think that we've had... At least in my recollection, we haven't had a visual representation of what that looks like. And here we get that. We can compare and say, wow, 2 people can really do the same thing super different.
Super. Well, let's talk about some of those differences, all right? So the first one is Darkseid's the big bad now. We get the impression that he's going to be a focal point. He would have been a focal point going forward. Also, parademons, they don't smell fear. They actually have their own backstory, which they were kind of changed via Darkseid. So they're kind of like zombies to a degree. And Steppenwolf has this redesign, and he's now more of a minion or a lackey. So what did you guys think? Any of those particular issues strike out for you as either great or you didn't like the change?
I love the visual difference of Steppenwolf. And I love the dynamic change in terms of who's the big bad. And like Steppenwolf was a tough character, but he is just, like you put it, he's a minion. And so that makes the threat so much bigger. And it makes more sense why Wonder Woman and Batman are going to come together and build this huge team of superheroes to try to save the world from this horrible, group of supervillains. That made more sense to me. It was more impactful. It was a bigger threat.
Yeah, Steppenwolf was a problem the first time around, just because he wasn't very interesting to pay attention to. He was just kind of easily forgotten, and he's just like any other big bad that we've ever gotten from Marvel, unless it's a Thanos character. He was just something that was there to cause some problems and that didn't really have his own story. But here you realize that he has his own story and he has his own needs and wants and tries, and he's desperate. He's desperate to push himself back into the good graces of Darkseid, and it makes him a bit more interesting as far as a villain is concerned. And he brings a lot more stakes with him.
That the redesign is just so much better. I know some people still don't like it, and I get it, but I dig the armor. I like that it's almost kind of bringing to mind, typical medieval armor in terms of the mesh and whatnot.
Yeah, he looks like a warrior.
Yeah, he looks like a warrior.
In some ways.
I loved it. I mean, it's kind of weird that his helmet's exactly the size of his head, but whatever. I don't care. It was just a cool look. I felt like I had a real character here, and Darkseid is not a character I really know. I know who he's supposed to be. He's DC's Thanos to a degree, but he really made an impact for a character that I didn't really know anything about. He made an instant impact, which I thought was important. And it was cool to see him, and I'm just going to use this to segue. It was cool to see that he's actually the one that brings the battle to the Age of Heroes, for that time, when the Atlanteans and the Amazonians and the humans came together to fight. Zeus was there to fight Darkseid. That he's the one that was actually in that battle. And it was cool kind of seeing that all the stuff we saw Steppenwolf do in the original Justice League is now being done by Darkseid. Now, I don't know if that was always the intention, but I assume it was. And it makes more sense now. It really does. It feels like that's the character that should have been in that battle, not Steppenwolf. Because Steppenwolf never showed to me that he could take on a whole damn race, I guess.
Yeah, I agree with that.
What did you guys think of that battle? Because it's basically the same battle, but it's extended. We have actual gods in there now. We have Zeus. We didn't have Zeus in the first one. It's just, that's really the big difference, but Darkseid just seems like a more formidable opponent, I guess.
Well, what I noticed about that battle is, yes, Zeus was in there. Although they did say this time it was specifically Zeus. He was in there the first time around, but they didn't go Zeus was there. They just said old gods. And,
I don't remember him being there. The Justice League was forgettable in spots.
Yeah, it was cut up quite a bit to not really pay attention to him. As far as like Zeus and Artemis were both there, and so was Ares. And in this one, Ares, they actually show his face as the Ares from the Wonder Woman movie.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, they actually edited his face so it looks like his, and it was awesome. Like I like that battle so much more, and as a way to tell that story. And I like the depth they went into instead of it just being like, so he came, he lost, they dragged him off. It was his worst fight ever, and that's why he's not here. It's just more impactful to have this failure of Darkseid be this planet.
All right, how about that score? The whole new score. It's a brand new score from Junkie XL. What do you think of the score? Mandy, you're a big music nut. Did you appreciate it?
Oh my God, it was so different, and it changes the tone of the movie so much. I loved it. I thought it was beautiful. I thought it was haunting in many ways. I thought it really exuded tension in a much different capacity. I was just much more satisfied with it, and I love that Snyder was like, yeah, let's just redo the whole thing. It's fine. No big deal. We're doing all of this anyway. It's fine.
Danny Elfman's like, where's my nothing? Like nothing?
But it matched perfectly.
I sort of missed some of the stuff from the Justice League. Like I missed some of the nods to the older movies, and I missed that bits. Those bits where I thought were fun, but at the same time, I did think that this score was a lot better. It wasn't as kitschy. It wasn't as I don't know. It wasn't as like panhandly, I guess. It just was honest.
Yeah, and I think it incorporated the themes that we know very, very well. Like the one thing I really missed in Justice League was cueing the Superman theme from the Man of Steel film when it was needed. And the use of that, like as they're circling the table and the mother box is saying, hey, we know what we should do with this energy. We should bring this mofo back. As they circle the table and the music changes to the Superman cue, I was just like, oh, my hearts. Like it just hit me right in the gut. And then the same thing with the Wonder Woman theme. Like it moves seamlessly to that whole, whatever the hell that is. I love it still. Moving to the,
but it still had that dark element to it where it was almost had like a level of horror to it, where it was trying to say there's big, powerful, but like things are bad and dark, and there's a lot of energy here.
These are gods. This is a war coming that only gods can fight. That's what the score said to me. And it felt epic. Like John said earlier, I think it felt operatic. It felt powerful. And that's what this coming together needed to be. You have the biggest freaking icons in the whole DC world, and they are all pretty much gods. So it's cool that happened.
And Flash. And then there's Flash.
Well,
I'm just kidding. He has a much better story here. I'm just kidding.
He's kind of a god. He turns time back. I mean, that's fantastic.
I know. That's what I'm saying. He has a much better story.
I don't like to do that, but, I'll pull that card out when I need to, when we screw it all up and things might go sideways, which I freaking love, by the way. I love that. But I want to talk about the nightmare sequence and, kind of like tying it into Cyborg's vision, because I'm going to explain what that was supposed to mean. So that was a scene that was shot recently. Like, that's a new scene that Snyder shot because he wanted to incorporate, two things. He wanted to make sure that Batman and that DCEU Joker actually met, because he felt like it would be a crime if they didn't actually meet. And he also wanted to showcase what the future of the movies were going to be, like Justice League 2 and 3 would have led to. So I'm going to read you this long description. It's a little bit long, but I want everybody that's listening, if you haven't heard about it, you kind of know what direction he was going to go with.
Before you read this, can I ask you a serious question?
Sure.
Why are we not going to get more? Like, it's just weird to me that I've got to step aside because I have a personal family tragedy, but I have this vision. People love it. Let's do more movies. And they're like, nah.
Because it didn't make as much money as they wanted, and they're going in different directions now. That's basically why.
But I'm saying his didn't go out, though. Like, his movie did not go out. So why not go back to, like, people are finally raving about DC properties again. Despite even Wonder Woman 84, people didn't love it. And they're wrong, and it's okay. But, Justice League didn't do well, but we've already got so many fans saying, that's because it wasn't as good as this. This is what we want. This is what we like. Yeah. So why? I don't understand. Like, yes, it could make more money, too. But it's also, like, he's a great visionary. So why? I don't understand why.
John, you got any thoughts on that?
Ultimately, what I think is that I think Aaron's right on one side is WB is going in a different direction. On the other side, though, this proves that fan service can get you very far. So maybe the door isn't completely closed on this. So who knows?
Yeah, I guess we haven't really mentioned that this is unprecedented. Like, usually when you get a director's cut, it is, 20 minutes of missing footage or stuff that wasn't added. This is a whole different movie. It's not the same movie. It's a completely different vision. It's a completely different tone. It's a completely different score. Everything about this is a new film. This has never been done before. Never have they given a filmmaker $70 million to finish the movie that he didn't get to finish.
So much money.
Yeah.
And it's not even finishing the movie. Like you said, he's like, nah, we're going to just remaster this. Like, I'm going to take all the stuff that I did do, and then I'm even going to build more scenes. I'm going to build this world even more. And they were like, yeah, sure. Okay, that's fine. But we're not going to do anything with that $70 million that you just invested in a property that's going to go nowhere.
Well, he got special effects and everything else. Like, he finished the movie is what he did. He had
but I'm saying you invested so much money. Why wouldn't you? And you have people who are saying like, yeah, we like it. Why wouldn't you be like, yes. It's
Well, I agree with you. Why not continue it? And there's still plans on making other DC stories that can easily link up to this. So who knows what they're going to actually do. One thing I want to sidetrack to is that I felt like the special effects, now you mentioned special effects, were actually better in this than they were in the Justice League. Like Cyborg looked much better. Like, especially in that scene where they're lined up in front of Superman, when Cyborg's arm starts freaking out because the two of them identify each other as hostile forces to one another. Like in that scene in the Justice League, I thought when like Cyborg turned his head to look over at everybody else, it looked really wrong as far as the way the CGI worked. But this time, it looked like the way the scene was supposed to look.
Yeah, it's more seamless.
Yeah.
And to be fair, I mean, I do want to be fair. The special effects obviously special effects advance every single year. It's just like, technology and anything else. So technology is better now than it was 4 years ago. So that obviously is a benefit. And honestly, just the Steppenwolf redesign kept me in the movie more, where it didn't because every time Steppenwolf was on Justice League, I just kind of giggled under my breath.
You laughed at him because he was like, he's like one of those characters that you see come on, you're like, oh, you're cute.
Like, you should be fighting Sonic the Hedgehog.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. All right, so you guys ready to hear this? Okay, settle in.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Sorry, you were going to read stuff.
Yeah, settle in, kids. I'm going to tell you a bedtime story. So here's what was going to happen. So Lois was the charred corpse that Superman tearfully held in Cyborg's vision from the middle of the movie. And then eventually Darkseid comes to Earth. Superman says to Batman, "Guard Lois. This is a war between me and Darkseid." Lex tells Darkseid that the key to Superman's weaknesses is killing Lois Lane. For whatever reason, Batman fails. Darkseid comes back and kills Lois. Batman fails. They were in an argument. He hesitates. The intention was that Bruce fell in love with Lois and then realized that the only way to save the world was to bring Superman back to life. So he had this insane conflict because Lois, of course, was still in love with Superman. So he had this beautiful speech where Bruce said to Alfred, "I never had a life outside the cave. I never imagined a world for me beyond this. But this woman makes me think that if I can get this group of gods together, then my job is done. I can quit. I can stop." And of course, that doesn't work out for him. Even without this romantic.
Tearing up already.
What's that?
I'm totally tearing up already. I love this.
You are ridiculous. Even without this romantic subplot, Snyder said, Batman would have been plagued by guilt for not stepping in front of the blast that killed Lois. With her gone, Superman is heartbroken and loses the will to fight. Darkseid uses this moment of vulnerability to seize control of him, and Superman's fall leads to the deaths of Wonder Woman, Aquaman, and countless others. The world falls because Superman succumbs to the anti-life equation. And that's why it's important that we mentioned what it was earlier. So it's not like Superman snaps and then he goes ballistic. He's controlled because of his grief. He becomes vulnerable. So that's what the post-apocalyptic world is. Superman just searching for Batman to kill him to get his revenge for the death of Lois. What happens in the post-apocalyptic world is Cyborg works on an equation to use a mother box to jump Flash back in time to warn Bruce about this moment, where he didn't have the courage to sacrifice himself to save Lois. We've actually seen that moment already. It's that Flash's strange portal appearance in Batman vs. Superman. That's why when Bruce references it in this movie, he says, "No, I think it was something darker." There's more. Once Bruce of the past realizes what he has to do, he doesn't fall short when Lois is in danger. So in that moment, he does the right thing and he sacrifices himself. That changes the course of everything. And this is like basically Justice League 2 and 3. Superman doesn't succumb to the anti-life equation. Then the final movie has Aquaman leading the forces of Atlantis, Diana leading forces of the Themyscira, and Superman and Flash leading forces of humans against Darkseid in a giant war. 20 years later, Clark and Lois' son, which originally was going to be Bruce Wayne's kid, would have picked up the mantle of Batman. Okay, so knowing that, and that's my big one, is like Warner Brothers said absolutely not. They were going to have Bruce Wayne be the father of Clark and Lois' son, and then Clark doesn't find out until later. He's thinking that was his. So basically, in my mind, so you're saying that Lois realized that Batman kind of is the part of the reason why Superman died, but she's going to sleep with him? It's just such a far reach. And they're going to have like this triangle. That's what didn't work for Warner Brothers and myself. And I don't know how John feels about it, but I know Amanda loves it. She loves this baby daddy idea.
I'm really happy they didn't go that way, because that would have been ultimately one of the most frustrating things ever, and I would have thrown somebody down a set of stairs, probably Zack Snyder, or
I like it. I know it's ridiculous though.
It's so CW.
I don't know.
CW.
I don't know that it would really work, but I do love it. I do deeply enjoy that concept, and I hope in some like fan fiction world it happens. But I think even earlier in the concept, like before you get to the love triangle, all of that is super powerful and definitely fits into this world. And I could absolutely see that happening. I could see Lois dying and Superman has a moment of weakness, if you will, and vulnerability, and gets kind of taken advantage of, if you will, and is controlled and goes after Batman. But there's a part of him that does feel that way, I'm sure. And that's the complexity. That's why he's able to be controlled or something. Like, I love that concept, and I love that scene without Mira, but I love that end scene where they have it and they're like, oh man, he's coming. He's here. I'm like, what? Who's here? It's Superman, isn't it? And then he comes down and he's got red eyes. And I'm like, this is so cool. I love it.
Now, knowing all of that, take it out without the baby daddy, because John and I are against it. So 2-1. So
right.
Leave the baby daddy out of it. And Warner Brothers said, absolutely not. We're not waiting in that. That's worse than Martha. Martha, what did you guys, do you want to see that vision? It's just like simple question. Yes, you do? Okay.
Yes, I would like that vision right there is dark enough to make it something completely different from anything Marvel would dare to put out. At the same time, it gives us the opportunity of seeing some of DC's biggest and baddest characters be the monsters they are, be like the monster badasses they are, and show their strengths and depth and all that. It really challenges them and puts them into a story in which there's some real sense of loss to it, whereas it doesn't feel safe for kids or anything. And I think that's what is more important about it, where you really want to watch it and feel like you're getting this grand battle of good versus evil, and it just makes more sense.
I think on top of that, though, it challenges the audience it challenges us on what we're accepting of superheroes. Like, we think about, and I was thinking about this while I was watching the Zack Snyder cut, I'm like, we really, like, this world does not really care about how much power these superheroes have. They don't have any limitations on them. They can just do whatever they want in hopes that they're going to be good, and it's fine. They literally have access to controlling everything and everyone, but we're going to hope that it's all okay and okie dokie. And
Wonder Woman straight up kills people in this.
She does, and it's my favorite. And it poses that question, though, when Superman becomes controlled, and it says, so to what extent do we say this is all okay, that these superheroes pose a threat to each other, but also to our entire world? Because Superman he's not being limited. He's not being held accountable for what he's going to do, and who's to hold him accountable anyway? Like this, it raises an interesting question, at least to me. And while I was watching the Zack Snyder cut, I constantly had that going through my head, which I did not have in Justice League, because I didn't feel like they were as powerful as they are here.
It was more like a cookie cutter. I mean, it felt like a cookie cutter attempt to make an epic superhero film, is what the Justice League feels like.
Yeah, these characters feel so much more like in the vision of what Amanda just put out. These characters exude so much more virtue than they did in the Justice League.
It's hard not to say it, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really is. I tried not to, but then my mouth said, "Go ahead, say it," and I was like, "No, you can't. It's their thing." And I'm like, oh, "Go ahead. It'll feel good."
Well, we talked about it a little bit, and the fight to bring Superman back is now just a discussion like an actual team. And, in the original movie, it was Bruce wanted to do it, didn't care what anybody else thought. Diana said it's stupid. We're really rolling the dice here. And everybody else is just kind of like, I don't know, sure. Where here, it really becomes a whole thing where where they have an actual discussion. The Mother Box even participates in a way in the conversation. And then even Cyborg, when they have the moment where the Flash actually charges the box, it seems like Cyborg rethinks his idea and he says no, and Flash hears go. I mean, did you guys get that from that as well?
Well, there's a lot of little things in that scene that as far as storytelling happening. First, when Cyborg is in the ship, the ship is kind of sort of and it's not even just Cyborg; it's also the Mother Box. Like the ship doesn't necessarily cooperate fully with either one of them, and especially it identifies the Mother Box as something that's foreign and something that's dangerous, which will later explain, if you're not paying attention, why Superman looks at Cyborg and kind of like has this instinctual feel to fight him. But yeah, there's the rest of it that you just said, where it just seems like he has a completely different change of heart in that moment, but it's already too late.
And what did you guys think of the actual discussion of it, where it was everybody's kind of weighing in, and this time actually Aquaman is against it, which was an interesting.
That makes more sense to me.
It does, yeah, because it feels like him.
Yeah. I mean, everybody in the first one, it felt like it was just Wonder Woman and Batman arguing, and I just don't. That never felt true to the characters and to the moment. And here it's a team discussion. Like, these are all powerful gods. They're going to raise their voices in terms of being part of the conversation, but they're going to communicate. They're going to talk about it. They're not here to just be like, yeah, we're going to do this, or no, we're not going to do this. It's let's come together sort of thing. They are united.
I love it. All right, well, let's get into the characters. Okay, so we're going to go through the big ones one by one, but we are going to mention that Martian Manhunter was Harry Lennox there. You saw Martha Kent morphed into him. The pep talk was actually Martian Manhunter, which was really cool. That was a cool reveal because I knew it was coming, but I didn't know it was coming there, and that was great. Mm-hmm. But the ending where he visits Bruce was actually supposed to be John Stewart, a.k.a. Green Lantern, and they changed it because so cool. Warner Brothers didn't want to do that yet. Like, they don't want to do that yet. But how do you like either one of those visits from Martian Manhunter or the Green Lantern that would have been?
I like keeping the idea of keeping the Green Lanterns under wraps still. Like, that's too much of, like, especially where they are in this whole story, that's too much of something you'd want to bring into if there is a sequel or something. But the idea of hinting at, or at least giving us a peek at Martian Manhunter is so much greater because as far as in the world of DC, he's a pretty great and powerful character. You're talking about a character that can read minds, can transform into any form he wants to. He's kind of like Vision in the way that he can actually make himself be able to go through walls and stuff, and he, as well as all of those things, he more or less has he has a strength of Wonder Woman, or just a little bit more strength than Wonder Woman does. So he's a super powerful character, and it's great to see him here.
Neither one of them felt bad to me. They're both great choices. I disagree with you though, John, because one of the things in this gigantic movie is that there's no limitations. Like, you're not, and Zack Snyder wasn't thinking of it as there won't be sequels. He was thinking of it more opposite, where superhero movies never really conclude. There's always something left open in a door to proceed into another movie and to open this door and expand into this thing. I get where Warner Brothers is coming from. If they plan on announcing something, they want to keep their announcement to how they envision it. And, whatever, I get it. I do think it would have been cool, though. And it would have been probably gotten a lot of great marketing traction, especially from Ryan Reynolds, who would have poked fun about it. And it would have just been a really great camaraderie sort of thing.
That's probably why they didn't do it. They didn't want to it was too fresh in people's minds still, the whole Green Lantern fiasco. Maybe, yeah. But I think either one of them would have been fun. I mean, Martian Manhunter is good, but I would have also liked Green Lantern. I really liked the design of Martian Manhunter. I thought he looked cool. I don't know the character at all,
cool.
But it was a cool design. I dug it. You know what I didn't dig? Okay, I dug Aquaman. I'm so glad the "my man" line is still in here because that's probably my favorite moment from the original movie. I did not know.
But why are people sniffing his sweater?
Okay, hang on. We're coming there. We have to talk about the Seaside Serenade. The Aquaman, here is mostly the same, I would think. He has a little bit more backstory. It's a little bit less jokey, and he doesn't have the cool lasso moment. I did miss the lasso moment from Justice League. I did like that moment where he sits on the lasso and tells the truth.
And has the truth, fun. Yeah.
And Mira's here, but she has a British accent for no reason we can think of. For absolutely no reason.
I can think of one.
What?
You can?
I can think of one.
Okay, go.
She's getting replaced. And the person they're going to replace her with will have a British accent.
Please!
That's not going to happen. They're not going to replace her.
Lord.
That means she had a British accent when they first shot it. I think the intention was that she was going to have this fancy accent, so she sounds cooler, more regal. And then they decided for Aquaman, no, that didn't work. It's kind of like Scarlet Witch. She's had about 3 accents in her run.
Hers makes sense, though. Don't get me started on WandaVision.
Well, it went away. It just magically disappeared, which does not make sense.
No, she worked
yeah.
Okay, fine. Storm.
Okay,
Let's forget Wanda. Let's talk Storm.
Yeah.
Don't get me on Scarlet Witch, man.
So Mira doesn't have the accent anymore. Apparently, maybe she fell in love with Aquaman. She realized, I don't need this accent. I don't need to pretend. I'll just be like him. So she doesn't have it anymore. But it was kind of weird. And I get that for the nightmare scene where that was new footage, she kept it because otherwise it wouldn't have felt right for this movie. I just thought that was interesting. So what did you feel about Aquaman and the whole Mira thing?
I'll let you have the floor, Amanda.
Oh, I cannot stand her. I've never liked Amber Heard as an actress, if you can even give her that title, because I just don't think she's great. She's just kind of like a pretty face to fill in. I think they could have found somebody who would have given this role so much more.
I guess we're never getting her on the show.
Do you want her on the show? I don't.
She might beat my ass.
Wow.
That's the other thing. Don't even get me started on the hypocrisy of this.
Hey. We don't do that here. Let's go.
I know. I said don't even get me started. I'm just saying she just does not. I don't feel like her character has any substance at all. Even when she's angry in the nightmare scene at the end, I'm like, you just don't intimidate me. Like you're like a little mouse who's like, no, I'm gonna get you. It's so weird to me that she's like trying to come across. She's just not that character to me. Well, I shouldn't say she's not that character. Amber Heard does not portray that character well enough for me. And so the less of her I have, the better. Aquaman is fantastic. I love him. I'll agree it is fun to have a little bit more of his jokey side. He did have a little bit more personality in the Justice League, just because he would have a little bit more fun with it. But at the same time, this is Zack Snyder's vision. It's a little bit more dark. Things are looking very doom and gloomy. But as we've seen Aquaman and other things, he seems to have more fun than we got here, I felt.
I like how... Sorry, bad joke, but I'm going to say it anyway. So maybe Mira is more threatening in the water because I know she scares pirates. What? I feel...
Jesus.
Oh my God.
Sorry, John.
Make that into a meme. That's so funny.
What do you think about Aquaman?
All right, so I'm going to leave Mira alone because apparently that's scorched earth at the moment.
Yeah.
As far as like what we got from Aquaman, this is a much better introduction to him because we got to remember that this was our initial introduction to him, or should have been on what our initial introduction to him was in this movie, which he didn't get that much of an introduction in the whole Justice League. I miss the I hear you talk the fish line, although I was actually at the same time glad it wasn't there, but. I like the whole walking down the sidewalk and they're not in front of anyone and they're talking about how he's Bruce Wayne and Batman and all that jazz.
It's so annoying. I thought that was Joss Whedon. I'm like, God, that's actually Snyder, you idiot. Why are they talking about him being Batman so publicly?
Right. Yeah.
So ridiculous.
The seaside serenade where she's sniffing his sweater and singing to him as he's leaving was hysterical, actually. But it was just one of those things that was just funny for just like the imagery worth. But
so hang on, hey, no, you don't get to continue with that because why? Why did that happen? I don't understand. Who thought that was a good? I'm gonna miss you, Aquaman.
It smells like patchouli and sex.
Very Hannibal Lecter. It was just weird. Like, if a man did that, we'd all be like, ooh, he's a creeper. He should be in prison. And this girl's like, oh, well, she can sing nice, so it's fine.
Exactly.
I can tell you that there was like at least 15 girls in my Twitter feed that were like screenshotting that scene saying, oh, look, I'm in the movie.
I mean, I get it. I'm not saying I don't get it, but it is creepy. So we're just
amazing. That's amazing. If 15 guys were saying that, we'd all be on a watch list.
Yeah.
Yes, you would.
That's very true.
Okay, I stopped you. What else did you want to say about Aquaman? Sorry.
I really liked adding Volko into the story and having that moment where it's Volko that like tells him what his responsibilities are, and as far as like showing him the trident and the armor and being like, this is what you're supposed to be doing. Like, that explains the armor so much more than just going, there's a few things I'm going to need from you if I'm going to do this, you know?
Yeah.
Yep.
That's a good point.
One wonderful thing that I think happened in the actual Aquaman movie is, and props to James Wan, because Zack Snyder, I will say, you know, he doesn't always do the story as well as I would like, but he is a visionary filmmaker. Like, he makes art on screen. And visually, it's hard to argue he doesn't make wonderful things to see.
Right.
The one thing that drove me crazy in Justice League and this one is the ridiculous way that they talk underwater, where like, we got a bubble. And then the water goes away and they're in this little bubble having a conversation. Aquaman addressed that so much better. It felt so much more natural and smoother. And it felt like, yeah, they can talk underwater. They can talk to fish. I mean, if they made a bubble every time they want to have a conversation, it just feels like a very time consuming process. So I think they really did a wonderful job in Aquaman making that work better.
Well, in this, what they kind of showed was like conversations they were having in the water sounded more like animal noises, as opposed to it being like, you know, they're talking to each other. And I guess that was their way of like doing subtitles for us.
Essentially, I guess. But I like it better in Aquaman. I think they really found a way to make it work better. Now, how about Flash? We actually get a little bit more. We actually get Iris in this. We get an introduction. We get the cool moment where he saves her as she's flying out of a car and he steals a hot dog before he does that. What did you guys think? Like, I thought this was a very sweet, hilarious, ridiculous scene that I really enjoyed and did feel like Flash. But John, you're a big Flash guy. Did that work for you?
Oh, absolutely. I love the way they show the way he moves in the Speed Force. I love the way they showed that here. I did like that whole moment where he ran out there to save her, and then he just took the time to look her in the eye and just realize how pretty she was, and then how gently he was able to save her in comparison to everything else. And in this, he's an actual hero. He's actually somebody who wants to be a hero, whereas in the Justice League, he was more of a reluctant hero kind of thing. At least the way they pointed him out. You know, his whole like,
scaredy cat. I'm save one.
Yeah, he's all like, I mainly just show up, push people, and run away, and that's not what Flash has ever been.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think this was a better introduction. This was, I mean, it was so fun and it was so cute. Even after the moment where he's saving her and he comes back in with the hot dog and he's trying to get that job and he's like, oh, you know, I always keep treats in here, you know, so I start on Monday, right? I just thought it was so cute and it makes you engage with his character a little bit more. But I think to your point, he's not just, if you're talking Batman is trying to bring together the biggest, best, baddest superheroes there is to fight the biggest threat that they have, they're going to want somebody who's not scared of everything. Like, they don't have time to show him all of the ropes. Now, while that was fun and it was cute, it just, he felt more adult and mature here, where there was maybe he didn't feel like he was just, you know, to their level. And he still admired Batman. He's like, oh, you're the Batman? Like, that was still cute. But he never seemed uncertain of his role as a hero. And I liked that. I appreciated that, because I feel like one of the things that makes you a superhero is that you don't ever question your ability to save someone or to do the right, best thing. You don't question your abilities. You're modest in it for most of the time, but you don't question it because that can lead to somebody dying. So this just felt like a much more well-rounded character. and he had more to do. He had more feeling and emotion. He actually helped drive the story, and he wasn't just kind of like a placeholder. I liked him a lot better here.
Yeah, two things I loved in this version was the conversation with his dad, because they both felt more human and warm. And actually, the one where he tells his dad he got the job just like was heartbreaking. I was just like, it was so sweet.
It was so cute.
Love that moment.
Yeah.
And the end, because the end is completely different. I mean, the end battle is completely different, but Flash actually saves everyone. And that to me was a beautiful moment that, I mean, he saves them after they fail, because they did basically fail. And then he reverses time so they can try again and make sure that they know what they have to do this time. Love that. I thought that was actually one where I was cheering. I'm like, oh, they're going to do it? Because I had no idea that was ever going to come into play in this movie. I had no idea. And I absolutely loved that moment. I don't know if you guys did, but I freaking loved it.
Well, they hinted to it when it went with the cube drop.
Yeah, they hinted at it, but it was like, I thought that was the extent of it based on Justice League.
Right.
I never knew that there was a whole ending where he actually saves everyone.
No, I mean, I just mean as far as like the ability for him to do was hinted at with in this version. It was hinted at with the cube drop, because if you remember, the cube drops and it's practically submerged, but by the time he gets to it, it's actually brought itself back up out of the water again. Right. So they hinted the fact that he can do that, and I just really thought that whole scene was amazing, and the whole fact that he kind of just stopped and looked at the whole world, which is a way somebody who can move as fast as he can sit there and just take in, like he can really sit in that moment for what for him could be like an hour, whereas for everybody else it's a second. So it was very cool.
And one of the things, too, we make fun of Zack Snyder. Everybody makes fun of Zack Snyder for his large use of slow motion in this movie. You don't laugh at that? Okay. The moment where he is saving the world and there's that slow motion for him was the best use of slow motion, I felt like, in this film.
I agree.
Because you were completely with him, and I loved it. Wasn't just like, okay, we're just going to watch him because we want to see his emotions in real time. It was watching the whole world rebuild around his foot. And that was so cool. That imagery was so cool, and it helped explain things. Although I will admit, I was like, wait a second, he can do this? Because I just never realized he could do it, and I didn't pick up on it at first. But it was a superhero moment. Everybody had their own superhero moment where they actually contributed. And I felt like in the Justice League, there were the big superheroes like Batman and Superman and Wonder Woman, and then Aquaman and Cyborg and Flash were just kind of like underneath that. Whereas here, they all had like a bit of, they were all elevated to the same level. Like, that's why they're on the team together. It's not because one person is better or is a bigger superhero. They just all have their own strengths and weaknesses, and that's how they work as a team, and they all can save the world in their own way. And I love that we got to see that.
You know who got the biggest boost from this? Cyborg. And Silas Stone, actually. You got a lot more with him, too. What was funny is when I saw Justice League, I couldn't stand Cyborg. I don't know the character that well, and I'm just like, God, he's barely in the movie, and all he does is lurk around and pout and just kind of mad at everything, and I don't have any idea why, because they did zero character development. And then I watched this movie, and I'm like, he's a great character. He's an actually fully fleshed out, great character with an actual backstory and kind of a heartbreaking end to his dad. So what did you guys think of Cyborg? Because he became, I've heard talk for a long time with this whole Snyder cut that Cyborg is the heart of the movie. And I couldn't for the life of me figure out how that was going to be possible. Now I get it. What did you guys think of Cyborg now that we have a fully fleshed out Cyborg?
I loved Cyborg. I thought there was so much more to him. Again, this is like a reoccurring theme. Each superhero, each character is getting so much more to do. But in particular, Cyborg's character literally drives the film. I mean, he is kind of the core and the center of it. And he does so much to progress the film. And he's another character, I think, to what you said, that we didn't, I guess, care about as much in Justice League. Whereas here, I'm crying for him and I'm crying for his loss. And they bring, I mean, it's sad that he loses his father, but it adds so much to the movie. And his character just looked so much cooler, too.
The thing that I like the most about adding Cyborg is that you really get an idea of what he's actually capable of in this movie. You get an idea that he is not just a Iron Man, that he is actually a being of technology at this point, and he is able to insert himself into whatever he wants as far as electronics, the internet, anything. He becomes his soul basically can actually interact with it at this point.
Which is so cool.
Yeah, the depth in which they tell you his abilities is pretty great, and it explains so much more about what he's capable of. And they don't leave so much to the all right, well, Cyborg's going to sit there and randomly scan this model of the Earth and for this whole where they're hiding, whereas they're going to go, well, Silas actually superheated the inside of the I want to call it the Tesseract, but I know it's not, the mother box.
3 Tesseracts.
It might as well be the Tesseract, but he superheats the inside of the I almost did it again, the mother box, just to make it easier for them to track it down later. And they really play with the idea that he can, to some degree, his anger can lead him to go down a darker path, and that was being driven by his father, but giving his father the ability to take that redemption path for Cyborg and show his light a bit more was really sweet and awesome.
Yeah, and I really enjoyed the moment where he's helping the mother, the struggling mother. He's using his powers to throw a little money her way so she can get out of poverty's path. And I thought that was a very nice touch that really, I mean, just the character completely was fleshed out. So, I mean, I get now why Ray Fisher was saying that his role is not in Justice League was not even the same thing. I mean, it's a completely different movie now, especially for his character.
Yeah, honestly, doesn't that make you a little sad for him too? Like, imagine doing all of this work and thinking you have this really awesome, well-rounded character, and then you watch the movie and you're like, oh, that's all I did?
Yeah, where you watch the movie going, well, at least I got to say booyah, so there's that.
Which I don't think he even said that in this movie.
No, he didn't. Well, it's a thing that Cyborg says, the way I understand it, right? But okay.
It is, which is why I was looking for it.
You're like, really? You took that out? But he didn't shoot that. I mean, he didn't put anything in here that he didn't shoot. That was Snyder's thing. So.
Right.
Now, Wonder Woman, I think we've talked a lot about Wonder Woman. I don't know if we really got much more, but we did get a cooler explanation of the mother boxes because she actually, used that whole arrow made a bigger difference or made a bigger impact here because she used that to kind of find the story and understand what the mother boxes were through old ancient text and whatnot. And I just, which is really using what Diana Prince does, in looking at historical artifacts. And it was really, I thought that was really cool. But otherwise, Wonder Woman, I feel like, is probably the most similar to Justice League, other than the missed moments that were really whiffed. What do you guys think?
I would say, that you're right. She's the most similar. But also, it's not to say that she didn't have the same impact, like she had any less impact either, because she still is a force to be reckoned with in this, and she's still very much part of the team, and she doesn't get relegated to the back of the team at all. She still stands front and center, and she still draws as much attention as anybody else does.
She's almost as ass kicking as Superman, honestly.
Yeah,
I think they make her cooler in this movie.
Okay, how so?
Well, even just the moment, and it is my favorite moment of this entire 4+ hour movie, is when she decapitates dude like mid-air. It was so badass. It was so cool. It was her just thinking on her own. But there are so many moments where I'm just like, man, she really just stands out and she does her own thing. And she just seemed more stronger and just had a better presence to me. I don't know. I mean, I agree
and less
that
sexualized. She's less sexualized.
Yes. Oh, definitely.
I did notice that.
Yeah.
Definitely. She is just another character like them. I feel like the most sexualized is actually Aquaman. Like when he's taking his shirt off in all of the water,
throwing it everywhere.
I'm like, Yeah. And then I'm like, wait a second. Am I allowed to do that now?
Why do you take it off? You wear pants. So why can't you just wear the shirt? Why are you discarding clothes all over the oceans of America?
Then didn't he have a bottle or something that he threw into the ocean too?
He threw a bottle in there. He's jackass.
He smashed it. He smashed it on the pier. He smashed the bottle on the pier because you hear it break. Like, he came out of the ocean wearing the shirt. Why do you have to take it off?
So but weird. Like, also, you are hurting your own creatures and your own land by. Anyway, I'm not going to get on that topic.
The shirt's made of hemp. It's fine.
Oh, that's a good point. He can take off all the clothes he wants. Like, nobody's going to complain. But he is the most sexualized character here, Fair. Which is so different. And I feel like just Wonder Woman as a whole, she felt bigger and stronger and just, she had more of the cool moments for me where she didn't have that before.
Okay, I stand corrected. We talked about the beginning, and I totally spaced it out as we continued. But yeah, that's the other applause moment for me is when she beheaded Steppenwolf. Because, you notice he's still alive when he's going back through, and I'm like, oh, great. So he was going to come back, and then she just like, nah, we don't want him to come back here. So we're just going to cut his head off. Is that cool? I love that. I'm like, yes, why else would you have a goddamn sword? In these movies, I'm like, she's got this sword. She's not killing anybody. Kill somebody. And then she cuts this guy's head off.
They even make a really funny reference, Flash does, to her sword. The sword lady or whatever he calls her. And I'm like, to me at that moment, I was like, she's got to do something cool with it, right? Like, they're making a nod to it. And when that moment happened, I almost had like a literal out loud applause and cheer for her because I think I went, oh, yeah, because it was so cool. And usually those moments, and I'm sorry to get on this road, but usually those moments are really reserved for dudes because, I don't know, they just have more strength to be able to do stuff like that, and they also look super cool doing it. But to see a woman like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna decapitate a dude, I was like, what? This is my Wonder Woman.
So cool. Just seeing the head come through the portal and it starts coming away from the body, I'm like, oh, and I was like, yes.
Oh, that's another thing. We didn't talk about how brutal and bloody this one was.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. There's like that fight with a terrorist. Like, there's brains on the wall from when she threw the guy into the wall.
She straight up kills that terrorist, too. She's like, check out these bracelets. Boom. That guy blew in half. He's dead.
Yeah.
He's so dead.
Yeah. Speaking of the bracelets, I think one of my favorite moments of hers was when she's talking to Alfred, and Alfred's making the new gauntlets for Batman, and he's like, "Well, these gauntlets will be able to absorb energy and disperse them." And she goes, "Uh-huh. So what's next? A lasso? Make it black."
Yeah, that was cute. That was really cute.
Stop stealing my shit. That's funny. All right. Well, speaking of, that's a nice segue to Batman. I'm Batman. And, Alfred's in here too. So what did you think? John, Batman. Do you think he got anything more here, more fleshed out, less jokey? For sure, there's a few one-liners. The fish line's gone, a few other ones. So he's definitely more in line with Batman versus Superman. What'd you think?
Ultimately, I liked what they did with him here. I sort of did miss some of the jokes that they threw in for Justice League, but at the same time, I like the intensity that he did bring. Although they did keep the whole like my superpowers being rich, and then there's when he introduces everyone to Alfred, he's like, "This is Alfred. I work for him." Those are great moments.
I love those moments so much.
I did miss the talk to fish, and I also missed and I knew it was Joss. I mean, I just knew it was Joss Whedon. But I kind of missed the moment where he's fighting Superman. I liked the "Tell me, do you bleed?" I just thought that was a nice little turnaround.
Oh, that one was amazing.
And also where he gets his ass kicked and he gets up and goes, "Yeah, I definitely broke something." And that
I'm definitely bleeding from somewhere.
Yeah, that was really funny. But I liked how they played. I think Ben Affleck is so good in this role. I just think he's great as Bruce Wayne.
He really, really is. He deserves to be Batman. Like, this is such a good role for him, and it's just disappointing that we're not going to get to see any more of this.
Can I tell you my favorite part about his character in this version? And I didn't, maybe it existed in the Justice League version, and I just didn't feel it as much. He felt so much more like the leader here.
Yeah, I agree.
Usually it was like, I feel like in Justice League, it was Superman's our leader. We got to bring our leader back, our leader. And it was here, he just was the leader. He didn't mean to be or try to be, but he was the one bringing everyone together and making this happen and realizing, okay, I've got to get this team together. I've got to, we've got to do this together. We're united. His speeches are the ones that kept people together. He's the one who inspired people to join the team, except for the Flash, because all he has to do is say, I'm Batman, come help us. And he just felt like a much cooler character, but he felt like a leader. And I loved that because every character is a leader in their own respect. And so much of them gained their own autonomy here. Mm-hmm. And I loved that. And I loved the plot point of, yeah, we got to bring our leader back. Superman was not what happened here. It was we need to right a wrong and we need him to help us. So that was the incentive or the purpose of trying to get him back. It wasn't, but guys, who's going to tell us what to do?
The other thing that this movie does very well is it understands Batman's limitations a bit better than the other movie did, where you don't see Batman going into a fight with something like Steppenwolf. You don't see him do anything like that. You see him managing the smaller stuff around and keeping that under control versus which is what he should be doing versus trying to step up against a big bad like that. And he should be trying to coordinating, which is what he was doing here more than anybody else, because that's what Batman's good at. He's supposed to be a master tactician, so that makes more sense in this one. This is the most important aspect to Batman in this movie versus Justice League is in Justice League he goes and they have that stupid parademon thing going everywhere and he goes and does a self-sacrifice, which makes no sense in the context of that. I just think it's dumb in Justice League. And of course they go and they save him, but it just doesn't feel like a powerful moment. Here, it feels like you understand why he's going to sacrifice himself, like why he's okay with, because he's doing it to save the world. That's what Batman does. He doesn't think about it, except when he hesitates to save Lois Lane, apparently in the next movie. But he just doesn't come across as the same guy in that moment in Justice League as he does here. And here, you understand that the group immediately understands what he's going to do because they know him. They've come to know him. We've come to know him with them. So they go to say, even though it's kind of putting the whole plan at odds, and it might even be why they lose, because they lost some time by doing that, but they don't want to just give up on him. So they all get out there and help him. And I thought that was really a much more powerful moment in this version than in the original version, where it's just weird. And plus, what he's doing has an actual impact. Like he's bringing down the field, the force field, so to speak. That's what he's doing. Like he's doing something. I feel like he wasn't really doing anything. I'm luring the demons away. Is all he was doing in the original.
I also really like that they retained about the bank. Like that was so funny to me, but also he was so relaxed when he said it, and that was like that demeanor of how he jokes around, and that is his superpower is being rich. And they come back and they tie it back to that moment where they're like, how did you get this back from the bank? And he's like, I bought the bank, so you're welcome.
I really like that they didn't show him happy that Superman showed up like they did in the last one, where Superman shows up and he looks relieved and they have that look, like that goofy smile on his face. Mm-hmm. I'm really glad we didn't have to see that again. Yeah,
because he was expecting him the whole time. Like I trust that Superman's going to be here. I just believe it. Like he said that to Alfred, and I
have faith.
Nice segue to Superman, last character. So Superman and Lois Lane, I think, actually probably gets a little less to do here than she did in Justice League, but it's still just as impactful. I really appreciate that it made a whole lot more sense why she was there. She wasn't the nuclear option or whatever.
God bless.
God,
bring out the big guns, God. That was so stupid now that you see it from this vantage point.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
It made so much sense at the time, but it's so stupid now.
And I think it's stupid because we've seen it done so much better. And the rest of the scene is pretty much retained the same way. It's just like, why is she here? Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, and Superman, I freaking loved. Well, I've always loved Henry Cavill as Superman. I just think he rocks it. And people that don't like him or Zack Snyder doesn't get Superman. Okay, fine, maybe. But I think Henry Cavill's great. And we still have that awesome fight where he looks at Flash as he runs by. And I think that's hysterical. I still think that's hysterical.
That's amazing.
But I love the black suit. I love...
Oh, yes, the black suit.
The moments where he's back and he's kicking. I actually like the entrance better, where he's just not impressed. I just love that better than I love the whole... I like truth. I'm also
I believe in justice.
Big fan of justice. What? Shut up. That's just such a... I know people that say that's a Superman line. I'm like, maybe if Superman sucks, I don't know. It was lame. I mean, I laughed, but it was, it's one of those moments where I'm like, that was great. And then like 20 minutes after you watch it, you go, that was kind of dumb though, right?
Yeah, it kind of hurts the second time around. Yeah. It really kind of does. This way it was like, not impressed.
Felt like Superman. I'm like, yeah, I'm bigger than you. And he beats his ass.
No, like just raffle stomps him. He doesn't need everybody else's help either. That's the part I love. Like Justice League at 100% has Superman in it. Justice League at 99% is just Superman. Until
they start tag teaming him later, which is fantastic. When they're just like bouncing him between him, Wonder Woman, and Aquaman, like bing, bing, bing. That was great.
Yeah.
I gotta be honest, I'm really thankful that there is a little bit less Lois Lane here, because these movies to me have just not established why each other. They have good chemistry, but I feel like I haven't really, like, that's all comic book stuff. And her even just the moment out in the field when they're standing there and he's like, oh, you I guess you're gonna accept it. It's not him just hugging her, because he cares about more than just Lois. Like, his mom is there, Martha.
Yeah.
That's such an important character to everybody. So of course he's gonna hug her and include her in that moment. And I loved that so much more, because Superman he's got such a big heart. And it's not just for Lois. It's for everybody. And I felt like I got more of that here.
I don't know. I could do with more Superman. I can always take more Superman. But at the same time, we got just enough Superman here to make sense.
You know what I found funny when the movie was over is that he doesn't really come into play until about 2 hours and 40 minutes in or something like that. I mean, it's quite a while before Superman is even mentioned, or really not mentioned. He's mentioned throughout the whole movie. Before he's brought back and we see Henry Cavill back in the frame. But when the movie was over, he still felt like he was in the movie the whole time. I just feel like they did such a great job of representing Superman in this movie and what he can do and how powerful he is and how important he is. And also that he still plays well with others. He's still a team player. He's still willing to let somebody else carry the ball. It's not like he's just there to help. He's not there to take over. Like that's why I agree with, I don't remember which one of you said it, but that Batman showed himself to be the leader. It's proven in those moments, because Superman doesn't have to listen to anything Bruce Wayne says. He just doesn't. He could beat the crap out of everybody on this team, but he doesn't do it because he's such a good guy and a good person. And it's just, God, I loved Henry Cavill in this movie. I love Superman finally getting the black suit and getting the, just beat the shit out of aliens. I just think it's fantastic. All right, guys, that's every character. What is left? Are there any other favorite moments we haven't already talked about for any of you?
I covered just about everything that I can think of that I really love. I actually feel like I can sit down and watch this whole movie again. Not today, but soon.
In chunks. Like, I feel like I want to put this into the chunks that they already separated it into. I'm just going to watch it piece by piece. Yeah. And I just really want to keep watching Wonder Woman decapitate people.
Oh, man, she killed so
bad
many people.
Of course.
Yeah. I mean, did the R rating ever bother you? Did the 3 F-bombs bother you at any point? Or were you like, I'm glad? Because I know there's going to be people that didn't like it because
I don't even think I noticed them.
I certainly noticed that and the shit bomb. So I noticed all those. It stood out to me. But at the same time, I was like, all right, I got over it pretty quick.
Did it bother you in any way? Or you're like, that doesn't really belong here. That feels like you're trying too hard to be edgy. Or did you really... You're like, that made sense.
It made sense in the moment, and I liked it in the moment. However, it just didn't. It wasn't anything that actually stuck out to me as wrong. It felt like it fit in this movie. It didn't feel like they were trying to be edgy at all.
Yeah, I didn't get that vibe. I just thought it was them trying to do whatever the hell Zack Snyder wanted to do in his movie.
You know what we didn't talk about, since everything Zack wanted to do? It's Jared Leto's return as the Joker. We didn't even talk about that. I mean, Jesse Eisenberg we didn't talk about because we'd rather not. But Jared Leto, that's an interesting return, and he's not looking like the Joker we saw in Suicide Squad. So did you guys this or no?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Well, I like it a lot because it plays to this aspect of like, of Joker has so many looks over the years that he kind of just melts into all his different looks. And I like that this is another new look for him. The post-apocalyptic Joker, this makes sense.
Yeah, I was so appreciative of what the Joker was here. How he looked, how he portrayed himself. I mean, the depravity of his words to Batman and just all of it. I really, really liked it. I was not annoyed with Jared Leto as Joker at all.
Yeah, I didn't love it. I mean, it's not where I was like, man, I got to see that right now. I thought it was just so much better than Suicide Squad and that ridiculousness. And I did like, because they kind of played with a switch in that nightmare scene, because you get the scene on the boat with Jesse Eisenberg, which is different. When it's not A League of Our Own. Instead, it's, hey, I'll tell you who Batman is. It's Bruce Wayne. And which totally sets up the Batman solo movie that was going to happen, which would have been fantastic. But I also like how then in the nightmare sequence, Deathstroke and Batman are now friends. So I'm like, well, what happened? Like, I want to see that story. Like, I want to see buddy adventures between these two. I think that could be fantastic. So that whole scene, like, there's so much stuff in that scene that I totally forgot about until just now. I can't wait to watch this movie again.
Oh, one other thing that I really, really liked and appreciated, the final voiceover monologue that is delivered by Cyborg's dad.
Yeah, Joe Morgan.
That was so much better than Lois doing it. I feel like I'm throwing shade at Lois.
You totally
and I'm
are.
not.
Yeah, you totally
I like Amy Adams a ton. But it made everything in the movie feel so big and powerful in terms of emotion. And everything that happened with Cyborg, his character felt so much more pivotal to the story. And I just liked it so much more. It was a good move.
Okay. Last question, guys. If $10 is the full price of admission, what do you give Zack Snyder's Justice League? Available now on HBO Max in that weird IMAX presentation.
I give it $8.50.
Yeah, I'm going to go $8.50 as well.
I'm going $9.50.
What?
I loved it.
What?
Loved it.
Holy moly.
I put it just under Endgame and Avengers, I think. The first Avengers, because that holds a special place in my heart. But man, I freaking loved it. I absolutely loved it.
Now, do you think you would have loved it as much had you not been able to compare it to Justice League? Because I tried to take that out of my perspective where I'm like, okay.
Because this is the movie that I felt like, don't get me wrong. I acknowledge this never would have came out in a theater because it's 4 hours long. I think you could have made 2 movies. I think you could have cut it right when they have the realization of bringing Superman back.
Many endings.
Yeah, they could have done that. And then you could have had 2 movies, Justice League Part 1 and 2. That might have worked. But as a whole, yeah, I freaking loved it. I didn't really think about Justice League except when some scenes popped up and I'm like, oh, that's different. Okay, that's a different musical cue. Oh, that's so much better than it was in the original movie. I don't understand. It's the same scene. Why is it different? But it feels different. And it just, there's character depth. When Justice League first came out, I was like, it's so stupid to introduce all these heroes in one movie. You can't do it well. You just can't. And now I've seen it. You can do it well. I just don't know if anyone would watch a 4-hour movie, but in a theater. But yeah, you can do it well. You can. And separating it into chapters, I think, is a really smart idea because of our binge culture that people can do. They can watch it at their own pace. They can stop at a comfortable spot and then come back to it if they want to. So yeah, everything about it, I freaking loved it. And, there's going to be people that didn't like it. Good. Sorry. I loved it. Going to ride out on that high. Okay, that's going to do it for this episode, guys. Find other episodes, reviews, and other info at thehollywoodoutsider.com. The email to let us know what you thought about Justice League, feedback at thehollywoodoutsider.com. Remember to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Google, Spotify, or subscribe in your podcast app of choice. We'll be back next week with our South by Southwest episode. That's it. Anything you guys want to say in closing about Zack Snyder's Justice League? You want to plead for Zack Snyder to come on our show in case he listens to this? Come on, Zack. Reach out. Come back.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah, Zack, please.
Absolutely.
We'd love to talk to you. Anything else?
No, that's it. That's it. Just Zack. Come on, let's talk.
I will add that they are still doing a fundraiser in honor of his daughter Autumn through the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention in honor of coinciding with the release of this film. So if you want to donate in honor of his daughter, you can do that.
And we should mention Amanda as the chairperson for a region of the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention.
Yes, but really this is for Autumn.
But I'm giving you props anyway. All right, well, that's going to do it. So thanks, everybody, for listening. I hope you enjoyed this discussion that's still not even close to the length of this movie. But remember, the next time you head to a theater or sit comfortably on your couch and watch Justice League on HBO Max right now, buy popcorn. And please bring this shit to IMAX. I want to see this bad boy in IMAX. I do.
Man, they can make so much money from that.
Just print Benjamins. Then Joker could buy that grill again.
No. Okay, I take back the idea of IMAX now. Not if we're going to give him money for a grill.
All right. Bye-bye.
Did you just say bye-bye like a phone call? Bye-bye. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.